Hello, welcome to Math with Mr. Dobrescu, to the rescue. Today we are going to find square roots of perfect squares. A square root of a number is the number that when multiplied by itself equals that given number. So for example, let's say we have 81. So 81 is made up of 9 times 9 because 9 times 9 is 81. Therefore, square root of 81 is 9 because 9 times 9 equals 81. Every positive number, please remember that, every positive number has a positive and a negative square root. Remember that. A perfect square is a number with integers as its square roots. And let's take a look at this example here. Example 1. They are asking us to find the square root of 49. So let's take a look at the options we have here when we find the square root of 49. First of all, 7 times 7 gives us 49. Because 7 times 7 is 49. But we also know that negative 7 times negative 7 is also 49. Because remember, negative times a negative, that the triangle equals positive. We also get 49. Keep that in mind. So the square root of 49 are actually 7 and negative 7. Okay? Pay attention to that. Okay? The square roots of 49 are actually 7 and negative 7 as the answer because we just proved it. 7 times 7 is 49 and also negative 7 times negative 7 equals 49. So we actually have two answers, negative 7 and positive 7. Let's take a look at these examples here. We have a couple of examples and some information here I want to share with you guys. The symbol, this symbol over here, is called a radical sign. We also call it a square root, but the mathematical term is also called the radical sign. That's the radical sign. Okay? It is used to represent a square root. Okay, remember that. This sign is used to represent a square root. That's what we call it, a square root of a number. Right? Square root or the radical sign. The number under the radical sign, for example, if we have a number there, that number is called the radicand. Please remember that. That number underneath of the square root or the radical sign is called the radicand. Okay? And here we have a positive square root. Okay? For example, square root of 16 is 4. That's a positive, right? We don't have any sign in front of the square root, which means that square root is positive. So positive square root of 16 is 4. Now we have a negative square root. So we have a negative square root. Negative square root of 16 equals negative 4 because it's negative square root of 16, which is negative 4. And finally, we have both square roots. We have positive and negative. Positive and negative square root of 16 equals actually positive 4 and negative 4, just like we proved it before. Please take a look at this information. If you want to pause the video, you can pause it. Write some notes. Remember, this symbol is called the radical sign. And the number under the radical sign is called the radicand. Please remember that. Now let's take a look at a couple of examples. Example 2. Find the square roots. So we have here square root of 25, the first one. And because 5 square equals 5 times 5, right? 5 times 5, remember. Now we have square root of 25 is going to be square root of 5 times 5, right? And because of that reason, right, this becomes 5 times 5, or 5 squared, right? Square root of 5 squared, which in fact is actually a 5. The final answer is 5. So square root of 25 is 5, right? Because we have 5 times 5, just like we explained earlier, and square root of 5 squared is 5. Now let's take a look at the second example here. Now we have a negative in front of the square root of 9 over 16. And because 3 over 4 squared, okay, equals 3 over 4 times 3 over 4, right? So we have 3 over 4 times 3 over 4, right? So now we have negative square root of 3 over 4 squared, right? That's 3 over 4 squared, right? Because 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, right? That's what we get. But remember, we have the negative outside. The final answer is going to be negative, right? 3 over 4. 3 over 4 as our final answer. But make sure it's negative, right? Because square root of 9 is 3, square root of 4 is 4, and we still have the negative that's going to stay outside of the square root. So outside of the fraction. So the final answer is negative 3 over 4. Finally, let's take a look at the last one here. We have positive and negative square root of 2.25. Okay, now we have a positive value and a negative value. Please keep that in mind. And because, again here, because 1.5 squared equals 1.5 times 1.5, and that gives us 2.25, right? Which is this one here. So remember here we have 1.5 times 1.5, right? But remember, we have the positive and the negative outside of the square root. So our final answer is going to be, first of all, we are taking the positive sign, so positive 1.5, that's one answer. And then the other answer would be negative 1.5, so negative 1.5. So in this case, we have two options, positive 1.5 and negative 1.5. Please keep that in mind. Okay, take a look at this example. And again, you are welcome to pause a little bit the video and go back and see what we did. And now let's do some work on our own. So pause the video and see if we can find the square roots of these numbers, 36, 100, and 121. And please remember, just like we did before, every number has a positive and a negative square root. Keep that in mind, okay? And after you spend some time, see if we get the same numbers and get back and let's see if we got the same answer. And remember, 36 can be written as, let's look at the positive value of 36. 6 times 6, okay? 6 times 6, positive 6 times positive 6 gives us 36, right? So, to find the square root of 36, right? To find the square root, find two square roots of 36. So one of them will be a positive 6, one of the answer, right? Square root of 36 is going to be positive 6. But now, we also remember negative 6 and negative 6 is also 36. Negative 6 times negative 6, it's also 36, right? So another answer would be negative 6. So the answer for number 1 would be positive 6 and negative 6, okay? Right there. Now let's take a look at 100. If 36 was 6 times 6, 100 is going to be 10 times 10. Okay, so the positive values would be 10 times 10. It also gives us 100. So one of the answers would be just positive 10. But 100 can be written as also as negative 10 times negative 10. So negative 10 times negative 10, and that also gives 100. So another answer would be, so positive 10 and negative 10. Now let's take a look at 121. 121 is 11 times 11. That's the positive values. Those are the positive values. 11 times 11. So remember, one of the answers would be 11. Square root of 121 is 11. But also we can write as negative 11 times negative 11. So another answer would be negative 11. Okay, every number has a positive. Every positive number has a positive and the negative square root. Okay, keep that in mind. And now let's take a look at another examples here. I want you to try to do on your own. Again, pause the video, take about 3 or 4 minutes, and see if you can find the answers. And again, if you can find the answers, Mr. Dobrescu is going to give you an A++ and a happy face. Okay, let's take a look at the first example here. After you come back, make sure you have the same answer in order for you to get the A++. Okay, first of all, we see that this negative here is outside of the square root, and therefore that negative is going to stay in the answer. And square root of 1, everyone should know that is just 1, right? Because square root of 1 can be written as 1 times 1. But now, since we have that negative outside, square root of 1 is going to be negative. Square root of 1 is going to be just negative 1 as the final answer. And if you got that answer, you get an A++. Next one. Keep in mind here we have the positive and the negative. So we are going to have 2 answers. One of them is going to be the positive and the other one is going to be the negative. So keep that in the problem, positive, negative. Square root of 4 can be written as 2 squared over 25 can be written as 5 squared. Okay, so square root of 2 squared is just 2. Square root of 5 squared is just 5. So this can be written as plus or minus square root of 2 squared over plus or minus is the same thing actually. Square root of 5 squared, right? And square root of 2 squared is just 2. And square root of 5 squared is just 5, right? Because square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 25 is 5. So the final answer is going to be plus and minus square root of 2 over 5. No more square root because square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 25 is 5. So this is going to be our final answer. And this one we can just put here in the middle so you don't get confused, right? Plus or minus, right? Plus or minus. And the final answer is plus or minus 2 over 5. Because one of them can be 2 over 5 and the other answer could be negative 2 over 5. Because this one, we have it right there, is telling us that we need to have both of positive and negative. Let's take a look at the last problem here. We have 12.25. So we need to find the square root of 12.25, and this is a positive square root, right? So now we know that if this number would have been 1,225, square root of 1,225 is actually 35. If you multiply 35 times 35, you get 1,225. And if you don't believe me, you can check with your calculator, okay? And now we are going to see what's square root of 12.25, okay? So that is going to be square root of 3.5 squared, okay? Because we're square root of 3.5 times 3.5. And remember, the final answer is going to be just 3.5. We have a square, and one of them is going to come out in our answer. So the final answer is just 3.5. Okay? We practiced so much today. We practiced how to find square roots of a number. And here we learned how to find square roots, right? And we worked with different type of problems, and we looked at a couple of definitions here, right? The symbol, remember this symbol is called the radical sign or square root. And again, the number under the radical sign is called the radicand. Please repeat after me. Radicand. 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 Okay? And that's it. Finding square roots of perfect square. Thank you all so much for watching, and I appreciate you giving the like and subscribing and sharing this video with your friends. And please don't forget to stay tuned for our next video. Bye.